I retired last month. My last day at work was quiet. People wished me good luck. I smiled a lot, but inside, I felt nervous. I had dreamed of long trips for many years. Now I finally had time. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to meet new people. I wanted to live slowly and enjoy my days. For many nights, I watched travel videos. I learned simple phrases that might help me. I practiced words like check-in and reservation. I practiced questions like, "Where is the bus stop?" and "How much is this?" I wrote useful phrases in a small notebook. I wanted to feel ready, but I still felt unsure. One morning, I opened my closet and pulled out my old suitcase. It had small scratches on the side, but it was strong enough for a long trip. I folded my clothes and placed them inside. I packed light shirts, pants, and a warm jacket. I put my passport in a small pouch. I checked it 3 times. I always worry about losing things when I travel. When I zipped the suitcase, I felt a quiet excitement. This was not a short vacation. This was the start of a new life. A simple one. A peaceful one. At the airport, I went to the check-in counter. "Hello, my name is Jane Smith. I have a reservation," I said. The staff confirmed my seat and said, "The gate opened in 1 hour." I thanked her and moved to the security check. At the security line, I placed my bag in a tray and took off my jacket. "Excuse me, do I need to take off my shoes?" I asked. The staff told me to walk forward and raise my arms. I followed the instructions and passed through without a problem. After I passed through the security check, I picked up my bag and jacket. I looked around for the gate signs. "Excuse me, could you tell me where gate 12 is?" I asked a nearby staff member. He pointed down the corridor and said, "Gate 12 was straight ahead, and then to the left." I thanked him and walked in the direction he showed me. The airport was busy. People carried suitcases and talked on phones. Some ran, some walked slowly. I checked the signs again to make sure I was going the right way. A few minutes later, I saw a small information desk. "Hello, could you confirm if gate 12 is this way?" I asked. The staff said it was correct. He added that boarding would start in about 20 minutes. I thanked him and walked toward the gate. When I reached gate 12, a few passengers were already waiting. I showed my boarding pass to the staff, and they checked it carefully. "Thank you. Is this the right line for 12A?" I asked. The staff confirmed it was. I thanked them again and found a seat near the window. I took out my notebook and looked at my notes. I wanted to review some phrases in case I needed help on the plane. I watched the planes outside the window. The engines roared softly. My heart beat a little faster, but I felt ready. When boarding started, the gate staff called passengers by rows. I lined up and showed my boarding pass. "Hello, I'm in row 12. I said. The staff scanned my pass and told me I could go ahead. I smiled and walked down the jet bridge, feeling that my journey was really beginning. I stepped onto the plane and looked for my seat. The aisle was narrow, and passengers were finding their places. "Excuse me, is this seat 12A?" I asked a flight attendant. She confirmed it was my seat and smiled. I thanked her. My bag was too heavy for me to lift. "Could you help me with my bag? It's a bit heavy," I asked. She lifted it carefully and put it in the compartment for me. I sat down and fastened my seatbelt. The engines started to roar softly. The plane began to move toward the runway. After takeoff, I wanted to get something to drink. "Excuse me, could I have a cup of water, please?" I asked. She brought me a small cup of water. I thanked her again. I looked at the safety instructions. My stomach felt a little nervous. "How long is the flight?" I asked. She told me it would be about 4 hours. I nodded and tried to relax. A little while later, I felt chilly. "Could I get a blanket, please?" I asked. The flight attendant handed me a soft blanket. I wrapped it around my shoulders. The plane shook a little. I felt worried. "Is this turbulence normal?" I asked quietly. The flight attendant said it was normal and we were safe. I breathed slowly and tried to stay calm. I wanted a small snack. "Could I have the sandwich and juice, please?" I asked. She handed me a tray with a sandwich and juice. I smiled and said, "Thank you." Later, I looked out the window. The clouds moved slowly below. "Excuse me, could I ask for some help with the map? I want to check our route," I said. The attendant showed me the screen and explained the route. I nodded and felt more confident. As the plane began its descent, I checked my bag. "Do I need to take off my seat belt now?" I asked. The flight attendant said to stay seated until the seatbelt sign was off. I waited patiently. After the plane landed, I waited until the seatbelt sign turned off. I gathered my things. "Thank you for your help. I had a good flight," I said to the flight attendant. She smiled and wished me a pleasant stay. I stepped off the plane, feeling proud. My first flight was done. I knew many more adventures were waiting for me. I walked out of the terminal. Warm air touched my face. The airport smelled different from home. Signs were in English and the local language. I felt a little nervous, but also excited. I wanted to get local money first. I found an ATM. "Excuse me, can I choose English on this machine?" I asked a staff member nearby. He said yes and helped me find the English option. I took a small amount of cash and put it in my pouch. I felt proud. I looked for taxis and buses. I checked my notebook with the hotel name. "Hello, can you take me to the Grand Hotel, please?" I asked a taxi driver. He read the name and told me it was correct. I thanked him and got in. The city outside the window was bright and crowded. Cars moved fast. People walked with purpose. The driver said the city was busy today and many tourists had arrived. I smiled and watched everything carefully. When we reached the hotel, I paid the fare. I walked into the lobby with my suitcase. "Hello, I have a reservation under Jane Smith," I said. The staff checked her computer and said my room was ready. She gave me a key card and explained the breakfast time. I thanked her. In my room, I sat on the bed for a moment. My body felt tired, but my heart felt full. I opened the curtains and looked at the street below. People walked under the warm sun. Cars stopped and moved again. The city felt new but also friendly. I washed my face and changed my clothes. I wanted to explore nearby streets. I checked my small bag for the key card, cash, and notebook. I walked to the corner and stopped. I checked the street signs. A small cafe smelled of fresh bread. I decided to go inside. "One sandwich and tea, please," I said to the woman at the counter. She smiled and gave me the order. I thanked her. After eating, I walked toward a small grocery store. "Hello, how much is this water?" I asked the man at the counter. He told me the price and said there was a small discount today. "Can I pay by card?" I asked. He nodded and pointed to the machine. I paid and said thank you. After walking a little more, I realized the streets looked unfamiliar. My map on the phone froze. I felt a small worry. I saw a woman near a fruit stand. "Excuse me, I think I am lost. Can you help me?" I asked. She looked at my notebook, nodded, and said the hotel area was not far. She spoke slowly and clearly, so I could follow the directions. I repeated the directions to make sure I remembered. I thanked her many times. She smiled and returned to arranging her fruit. I followed her directions. Soon, I recognized a street near my hotel. Relief washed over me. I looked back for a moment, but she was busy with her stand. Still, the warm moment stayed with me. I sat on a bench in a small square, drank some water, and wrote in my notebook. I wrote that I got lost, but I found my way. I wrote that small kindness made the city feel friendlier. I stood up and walked back to the hotel. I felt more confident than before. Today had started with a small mistake, but it ended gently. I smiled to myself. The next morning, I left the hotel after breakfast. The sky was clear and the air was cool. I wanted a simple walk before it got too hot. I checked my map and wrote down a short plan. I walked along familiar streets. I passed a bakery and a small bookstore. The street was quiet, with trees on both sides. Everything looked friendly. I enjoyed the calm morning and looked for the bus stop. When I reached the bus stop, I looked at the numbers and schedules. I felt a little nervous. "Does this bus go to the old town?" I asked a passenger nearby. He said it stopped a few streets ahead and that another bus would go directly to the old town. I thanked him. A few minutes later, the correct bus arrived. I checked the number twice and stepped inside. "Old Town?" I asked the driver. He nodded and smiled. I felt relief wash over me. The bus moved through narrow streets. Buildings became older and more colorful. Small shops lined the streets. A gentle breeze touched my face. I felt calm and strong. When the bus stopped near the museum, I got off and looked around. The streets were narrow and quiet. I walked toward the museum entrance. "One ticket, please," I said to the staff at the counter. She handed me the ticket and a simple map. I thanked her and walked into the first room. Sunlight came through the windows. I walked slowly from room to room. I read the descriptions carefully and looked at each painting. I felt a quiet joy. I liked solving small problems on my own and exploring new places. I sat on a bench inside the museum. I opened my notebook and wrote that I liked learning new things about the city. I wrote that travel was not only about seeing places, but also about discovering my own strength. When I closed the notebook, I felt a soft, real happiness. I stood up and walked out of the museum. The day felt bright. My steps felt light. I was not only traveling, I was growing slowly, but surely, in a way that felt right for me. When I left the museum, the sun was high and warm. I felt hungry and looked for a quiet place to rest. I walked along a small street with colorful buildings. A cafe with a few tables outside caught my eye. The chairs were simple, and the smell of fresh bread floated in the air. "A cup of tea and one sandwich, please," I said to the woman at the counter. She prepared everything quickly and placed the plate in front of me. I thanked her and sat by the window. The tea was warm and gentle. The sandwich was simple but tasty. I watched people walk by with shopping bags. The street felt relaxed. I felt like I belonged there for a moment. I wrote a few notes in my small notebook and enjoyed the slow break. After I finished eating, I decided to visit the local market. I followed a small sign and walked for about 10 minutes. The market was busy and full of bright colors. Fruit stands, handmade items, and small food stalls filled the area. People moved slowly and talked softly with each other. I wanted to buy some fruit for later. "How much is this small box of strawberries?" I asked the vendor. He gave me the price, with a friendly smile. The price was fair, so I bought the strawberries and thanked him. I walked deeper into the market. I saw scarves, wooden toys, and small ceramic bowls. Everything looked warm and handmade. I did not need anything, but it felt nice to look around. The air was filled with soft music from a nearby stall. After some time, I checked the map to return to the hotel. I felt a small doubt about the direction. "Excuse me, which way is the Grand Hotel?" I asked an older woman passing by. She pointed to a street on my right and said it was a short walk. I thanked her and followed her direction. The walk back to the hotel was quiet. The sun was lower now, and long shadows covered the roads. My feet were a little tired, but my mind felt calm. The day had been full, but not in a heavy way. When I reached the hotel lobby, I felt a soft sense of comfort. I went up to my room and placed the strawberries on the table. I opened the window and let the cool air in. I sat on the bed and thought about the day. I had found my way, asked for help when I needed it, and enjoyed small things. I felt proud of myself. I felt light. Traveling alone was not always easy, but it made me grow. I ate a few strawberries and smiled. I was ready for another day. The next morning, I packed my suitcase slowly. The room felt familiar now. I opened the curtains one last time and looked at the busy street below. I smiled to myself. It was almost time to go home. I took the elevator down and checked out. The staff wished me a good trip. I thanked them and stepped outside. The air felt warm. I walked toward the bus stop with my suitcase. When I arrived, several buses passed quickly. I checked the sign again, but the numbers looked confusing. I frowned a little. I think this is the right one. I whispered to myself as a bus approached. I got on and sat down. The ride was smooth at first. But after a few minutes, I noticed the buildings looked different. The bus turned into a narrow street. I laughed softly. "Oh no. Not again," I said. Did I take the wrong bus on my last day? A man, sitting across from me, looked at me with a friendly expression. He asked if I needed help. I smiled and nodded. "Excuse me," I said to him. "Does this bus go to the airport?" He shook his head and said it didn't. He said I should get off at the next stop and change to another bus. I thanked him and stood up as the bus slowed down. When I stepped onto the sidewalk, I couldn't help laughing. "Well, at least I know how to fix it now," I said. I crossed the street and found the correct bus stop. A new bus arrived soon. I got on and checked with the driver. "Airport?" I asked. He nodded and said it was the right bus. I felt relieved and sat down again. This time, the ride was perfect. When the airport came into view, I felt proud. I had made a mistake, yes. But it didn't scare me. It almost felt fun. Inside the airport, I checked the big screen for my gate. I walked toward it slowly. I felt calm. I felt ready. Before boarding, I whispered to myself, with a small smile. Well, if I can survive 2 wrong buses, I can travel anywhere. And with that gentle thought, I stepped onto the plane. I carried a light suitcase, a warm heart, and a quiet laugh.